Week 6 has arrived here at the Bet Rivers Sports Network, and we are ready to help guide you on another episode of The 10, your favorite Big Ten betting show. I'm your host, Greg Waddell. Doug Kezirian here with me as always. And it's a fun slate this weekend. We're going to take you through every game on the card. We will present you with our official best bets at the end of the show. And yes, that includes Wisconsin and Michigan, Illinois and Purdue, Penn State and UCLA, Minnesota and Ohio State, and plenty more. We're not overlooking UL Monroe and Northwestern, folks. Don't you worry. Before we start, let me remind you that we've got a great promotion for you here at Bet Rivers. College football squares. Bettors who play CFB same game parlays of qualifying amounts will earn weekly CFB squares for a chance at big prizes. We're talking big prizes, $25,000 of bonus credits as our payday. Go check it out. Make sure you take advantage. All right, we're going to get right into it. We've got a lot of games to get to here in week 6, starting with the Badgers at the Wolverines. The health of the quarterback spot is up for debate with Wisconsin right now. We don't know who it's going to be. We expect a team that had 3 different quarterbacks under center in their last appearance to possibly cycle through them yet again. Sharon Moore is back from Michigan, and the sports books have set the line pretty high here. Michigan minus 17.5 at Bet Rivers. Our total at 43.5. Doug, what do you think?
No, Greg, it was 16.5 when we discussed this game early in the week, and I liked the Wolverines then, and I like them now. I don't love them necessarily, but I think it sets up for a perfect sort of beatdown, a one-sided beatdown by the Wolverines. I've mentioned this before, but I think it really applies to Underwood. Teams and players are allowed to get better. You have a freshman under center. The calendar's turned October. He's played okay at times. Obviously, played better at home so far, except for that, but he just has he's been fine except for the Oklahoma game, and he was fine in that game. But I think this is a game also where the Wolverines just pound it down the throat of the Badgers, and I do think Whiskey could come to play early on, maybe show some resistance defensively. But you mentioned the quarterback issues. Badgers got smoked at home by Maryland. I think it's a little bit of wow, Wisconsin's not very good at all, but also maybe Maryland deserves some credit for that game. Nonetheless, I think it's too much on both sides of the ball for Michigan. Not a huge play, but I'll lay it with the Wolverines.
I like it. That's where I would lean if I was backing one team against the spread here. I mentioned it earlier in the week, and I've only felt stronger in my beliefs with more research. I'm on the under here. It's up to 43.5 now, up from 42.5 earlier in the week. I'll take the extra point. This Wisconsin defense, didn't mention this earlier this week, number 1 in the country right now in rush defense. They're averaging just 2.11 yards per carry allowed per rush. That includes, remember, a game against Alabama where they held that rushing game in check, 72 yards on 22 carries. So, look, this is a game with Sharon Moore back. He's been historically conservative. We know that he likes to just ground and pound. I think he might lead his team to run into a wall against the one thing Wisconsin does well. On the flip side, I would be shocked if Wisconsin finds the end zone once in this game. I think they will probably trot out multiple quarterbacks. Not a place I'd want to do that in the big house. So give me the under 43.5. Let's throw it over to Troy Machir. Welcome to the show, Troy. What notes do you have for us on how this game's being bet?
Yeah, the spread isn't the only thing that's moved. As you mentioned, the over/under total has moved from 42.5 to 43.5, but people are still betting the over. 94% of the money and 87% of the tickets are on the over. And the interesting thing to counter your point is, if you believe in, the big house is a tough environment that plays well to Michigan, is each of Michigan's last 7 home games have gone over the points total. But like you mentioned, this is not a normal football team they're playing. They're playing a offensively challenged team with no quarterback. So that certainly goes into play. This is going to be fascinating to see what happens in the fourth quarter if it is a 14-point game, and what Coach Moore does with his offense, if he just decides to run out the clock or not. But the over/under is really the most fascinating change from Wednesday to now in this Michigan-Wisconsin game.
Interesting. All right. Well, it looks like it's me against consensus here on the total. We'll see who wins. Let's move to game 2 on the card this week. It's Illinois at Purdue. The Illini saved their season with an inspired performance in that win over USC last week. Purdue is a new look program under Barry Odom, though. They've been feisty. Illinois laying 9 points on the road. Our total at 56. What do you like, Doug?
I'm kind of torn. So I'm going to play it 3 ways on this game and just split up a unit. So I like Purdue, but I also like the over. It's a really tough ask for the Illini, not only off the big win, but the previous week had a big emotional game, although they may not have exuded much energy because they got absolutely smoked and drilled by the Hoosiers. But it's a back-to-back sort of emotional games. Now you got to play lowly Purdue, and then on deck, you have a big game as well with Ohio State. So I like Purdue, and then Purdue's off a bye. So just a horrible spot for Illinois, a sandwich spot, gas tank running on low on empty almost. And then Purdue's improved. You mentioned what Odom's done with this team. They had the near upset with USC. Illinois just beat USC, obviously, in a game they really dominated in a lot of ways. Fluky turnovers in the end zone and stuff like that. They got the late field goal, but it really should not have been that close. So I like the over as well. I think Purdue's going to have some points. They went over with USC. Illinois obviously went over as well. This Illini defense with the injuries in the secondary that you've touched on the last couple of weeks, Greg, certainly noticeable. Purdue off a bye, just all signs point to it. So I like Purdue in the over, and then the third, just going to go Purdue's team total over as well. So all 3 ways to sort of sprinkle it. I think Purdue could come down to the wire. They might even be live on the money line. When the calendar turns to October, this is when the dogs really bark. Now, we've seen some in the early part of the season with Clemson having some issues and some else, but this is when the dogs get funky. Teams can't just drill opponents left and right, and these dogs get better. And I think this is going to be a tricky spot for the Illini, and I like Purdue over 23.5 for its own team total as well.
Doug, this is why you and I get along. A game we've both gone back and forth this week. Let's just lock in 3 plays for it. It sounds great to me. It's the spot of the year as far as I'm concerned, just given Illinois, who they're looking ahead to, Ohio State, and the emotional come down from that USC last second performance. So I endorse everything you've just said. Not as strong for me enough to go on my card, but I certainly lean the Purdue side 100%, and I see the vision here. Let's throw it back to Troy. Troy, what do you have for us here?
Illinois has been a fascinating team this year, not just because of what they're doing on the field, but how people are betting on them. And while we're not taking a massive amount of money, it's not in the top 10 for Illinois money line spreads and things like that. From a ticket standpoint, they're consistently one of our strongest plays per week. By the volume of tickets, by both just how many tickets and the splits. And right now, it's the 3rd most popular play of the weekend. And that's, including some big games. Georgia, a heavy favorite at Kentucky that is going to be in lots of parlays. So the fact that Illinois, for what seems like the 2nd or 3rd week in a row, for them to win is just backed by a massive amount of tickets. And we know that Purdue is generally outclassed here, but to see it 99% of the tickets on a Friday with a Saturday, early afternoon game is a bit surprising. And one other thing that has nothing to do with this is that this is obviously we're in Big Ten rivalry territory, and we have all sorts of rivalry games coming up. This is one of the worst rivalry trophies in the Big Ten, a conference that has buckets, spittoons, a brass pig. They play for a cannon. That's kind of neat. But I love the Midwestern rivalry trophies, and this one is very, very low on my rankings.
A reminder, last year in this rivalry game, Ryan Walters' miserable team still took Illinois to overtime and almost won that game. Weird things can happen in rivalry games. Troy, thank you for the notes on the Illinois money line. That shocks me. I mean, of all money line favorites to lay this week, I'd be careful with Illinois. Just my gut feel on that one. Let's move to game 3. The Nittany Lions in need of the same type of galvanizing performance Illinois got last week. Fresh off the loss to Oregon, Penn State's season certainly on the line. I don't think they're in danger of losing at UCLA, but in the Big Ten, you never know. Penn State favored by 25 on the road. Our total is 49.5. Do you like anything here, Doug?
I love that this is an interesting topic in some pretty sharp betting circles I'm in. This game would never be even discussed by football fans coming to this weekend. Obviously, Nittany Lions with game day, the whiteout, everything last week was this focal point of a lot of conversations by casual sports fans. But because of the point spread, this is an interesting handicap, and you can write a term paper on this game. In the 14 playoff era, this would be a really bad spot for Penn State. Obviously, the emotion, everything into last week's game, heartbreaking loss in overtime with the magnitude of the game. Frankly, even finally admitting there's facts in win-loss records and not just narratives and things along those lines. But it's a 12-team playoff. And Penn State, their season's not over. And I wonder if they can kind of take out their aggression on this UCLA team. And let's face it, Franklin's a betting bully. And you see the record on the screen, 0-4 ATS. He likes to reward boosters, if you will. Usually it's at home in September and laying big numbers there. And they've been unable to do that. Right? He's calling timeout at midfield in one of those games and then gives up a end of the game touchdown, the one-handed grab as well. It's been pretty dramatic when you factor in the point spread. I'm not sure any teams had more dramatic endings ATS with all sorts of point spreads when you factor in last week as well. They had the rally to go force overtime and, actually had a chance to cover 3.5. I actually lean Penn State here. I think UCLA is that bad. We did the preseason show. My favorite win total in all of college football was the Bruins under 5.5. I think we'll get there. But they changed play callers this week. And now Rick Neuheisel's son, I think he's never done this before. Former quarterback of the Bruins. He's a tight ends coach. He's now calling plays. Last year, UCLA closed the year strong. I just wonder if they have that leadership. Obviously, Foster's gone as well. I just think UCLA actually may be that bad. It's a lot of points, but the Nittany Lions can come to play and maybe motivated by the fact that it's a 12-team playoff. So I actually lean Penn State here.
They have been that bad up to this point, that's for certain. A lot of moving parts for me in this game, just given the play call change on the Bruins side. And then Penn State, we have no idea what version of Penn State's going to show up. Are they going to come together and have that let's save our season moment? This is certainly an opponent that you could beat up on if you do take that approach. But God, they got to be gutted after the way that Oregon game went. And I could also see them coming out flat, knowing they could probably play their F game and still win this game by 2 scores. It's a no touch for me, just given the emotional questions with the Penn State side of this. But let's see if the public agrees. Troy, what can you tell us about how this game's being bet?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting spread line to watch as we get closer to kickoff, solely because, it opened around 26.5. It was in that 26 for our previous show on Wednesday. And then it's now down to Penn State 25. Right now, only 56% of the money and 66% of the tickets are on Penn State to cover. UCLA, I believe they failed to cover in their last 5 straight. Or sorry, Penn State has failed to cover in their last 5 straight. And we've obviously, I'm still haven't gotten over the way the gate season opener against Nevada ended with that 2-point conversion to kill this cover for Penn State. So really fascinated. If this were a home game and it was 25, you'd take it and the percentages would be different. But when was the last time a conference game that a team was favored by 25 points on the road? I know how bad UCLA is. They've been one of my favorite teams to track this season because they are so bad. But it is just really intriguing to see this big of a favorite coming off a loss, certainly against a top 5 team, but to see how people are betting. And it's basically right down the middle because this seems to be a number that people aren't comfortable with in terms of the volume as well. I think if it moves a little bit more, you'll see a lot more action as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Thank you, as always, Troy. Next up, Washington and Maryland. Washington makes the trek east here. They are favored by 6 on the road. Totals at 53. These are 2 teams. I would buy a campaign for either of these teams that they're going to have a great finish to the season. I think there's playmakers on both sides. You could certainly talk me into either sort of being the emerging team that no one sees coming down the stretch here. Home underdog catching 6 points has my attention a little bit here. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to say something that I always make fun of people kind of tongue in cheek under my breath. It's like, God, if this line were 7, I would love Maryland. It's like, yeah, but it's not. It's 6. So why would you say something so stupid? So I'm literally saying that to myself. It's like, yeah, if it was 50, I would love Maryland as well. No, but I just think it's going to be one of those things where I think it's going to be right around the number. Wanting 7 would be so huge. The numbers come down a little bit. We're going to learn a lot about the Terps, I think, in this game. And frankly, to your point, Greg, we're going to learn a lot about the Huskies as well. I feel like that game got away from them. It was 2 annoying plays early in the game. You had the fake field goal, and then you also had the bogus roughing the passer that led to a touchdown that I think really kind of rattled Washington. And I believe it was Ohio State's second touchdown. But either way, obviously the Huskies just didn't belong on the field. Ohio State defense deserves a lot of credit to slow down Damon Williams. Loxley, I'm a fan of, and I think he's got the right quarterback rather than like Tua's brother a couple years ago. But we've seen this Maryland program sort of start strong and then kind of hit a wall. I think the win at Camp Randall really sends the right message. This is a tough ask for Washington across the country. And yes, they fly private and all this stuff, but this was a Huskies team that didn't do anything on the road last year. Now they went back and forth a bunch of times. It was really silly scheduling when you factor a lot of this in. But I got to take Maryland in the points. I just wish it was at 7 or something. If this game occurred before the Wisconsin game, it'd be 7 and maybe 7.5, and I'd be all over Maryland because I feel the same way almost that as I do about the Terps. I like them, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't cover here.
Yeah, this is a watch and learn who the emerging team will be. Like I said, I think there's reason to buy both. Both have great quarterbacks. Malik Washington's been just stellar. I mean, he's a guy that has a really, really bright future if he remains Maryland's quarterback going forward. And I'm assuming he will. I'm assuming they're going to do everything in their power to keep him long term. The scare for me here, the reason I ultimately can't get there with Maryland, even at a number that I do see value in at 6, is I don't think they've played anybody. I mean, is our data point here a Wisconsin team with no quarterback that they went in and stomped as Fire Fickle chants emerged? I think we're going to see a lot of average football teams do that to Wisconsin this year. You look at who they played in the non-conference. They stomped Florida Atlantic. They had a closer than you wish it was 11-point win over Northern Illinois, and then they stomped Towson. I just don't think we know what Maryland is against a quality opponent. Say what you want about Washington. Ultimately, they did not acquit themselves nicely against Ohio State. They've got talent. And they're probably pretty pissed off knowing that they need to right the ship here. For me, it's a stay away, even though I see a little bit of value at the number at 6 for Maryland as a home dog. Let's get Troy back in here one more time here. Troy, what can you tell us?
Yeah, money is on Washington to win with 68% of the money, but 54% of the tickets are Maryland to win. Right now, they're plus 200 on the money line. And the spread money is all, and spread tickets are all on Maryland as well. Here's the really fascinating thing about Maryland. And this week 5, and usually week 4 to week 6 is when we find out who Maryland is. They usually go 3-1 or 4-0 in the non-conference, and then they start league play. And, this is usually when we figure out Maryland is not all that good. They have lost 7 of their last home games. And the one game they won, they had to rally back from 14 against USC. And I believe USC's first or second Big Ten away game, and they had to travel across the country. USC went 1-4 in conference road games last year. You have to go back to early season in 2023 against a bad Indiana team for the last time Maryland won comfortably or not at the gun in a Big Ten game. So Maryland does not play well at home against good opponents. And, we still have to learn a little bit about Washington. I think this is going to be a very close game back and forth. But, if Maryland is good, they will win. And we will know that they are, better and improving under Loxley. But this is really fascinating because even though, Maryland is right down the road from where I'm recording right now, and I have friends who go to games all the time, and I would figure that they've seen more home wins in conference. But the fact is most of my friends are going to the games against Villanova and Towson. And when they're playing Iowa, Indiana, Oregon, Michigan, whomever it is, they end up losing. So, Maryland, if they want to prove that they're good, they should probably start winning conference games at home. And they have a chance, I think, even as a 2-1 dog on the money line, to pull off a win against Washington.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Troy. As always, we appreciate all the insights you bring to the show every single week. We've got a few more games on the card here. Next up, Michigan State at Nebraska. Spartans with a big time opportunity off of a bye here to, I don't know, maybe get their first statement win of the Jonathan Smith era. Meanwhile, Nebraska could certainly use more statement wins under Matt Rule. 11.5-point favorites at home in Lincoln. Total is at 49. That's down a point from where we saw it earlier in the week here. Doug, what do you think?
I like Sparty here, but I'm a little worried. They rank 101st in defensive efficiency and 130th in offensive efficiency, despite the offense looking okay against USC in a couple games. So I think this is going to be a giant square underdog, public dog kind of thing, a dog with fleas, as we like to say, or the line looks too, just it's too obvious, right? Like, how can you lay 11.5 with this Nebraska team? You mentioned off a bye for Sparty. I think they're doing some things that I've seen on while watching, but I wouldn't be shocked if I lose this game, given the efficiency metrics I just mentioned. Cautiously, I'll take Sparty.
Yeah, earlier this week, you and I were both looking at this line like, what is it? And we think this is so obvious, we got to take it. Now, usually, reminder, gamble responsibly, folks. That's a red flag when you're looking at a line. Why does it feel this way? I will say, I still have Michigan State to cover on my card. I just think it's too much respect to a Matt Rule team that has not deserved it in big games. They consistently underperformed. The two big games this season, Cincinnati and Michigan, they failed to cover in both. Both those teams, coincidentally, had quarterbacks that found great success extending plays with their legs. Bryce Underwood, Brennan Sorsby from Cincinnati, both, I think, combined for around 160 rushing yards between those two games, found the end zone 3 times between them. Childs can do that. And ultimately, even if it's a late, maybe you're down 2 scores game, I would trust Michigan State to score late and cover this number. I will say, to your point, Doug, the more I look at this, I like the over as my favorite play in this game. It's come down a point, but you mentioned Michigan State's defense, woeful this year, specifically woeful against the pass. I believe they're in the 120s nationally against the pass. They generate no pressure. They never sack the quarterback. Dylan Raiola, extremely comfortable in the pocket, guy that can pick defenses apart. When you add Michigan State's ability to run with the quarterback, which Nebraska hasn't been able to stop, flip to Dylan Raiola's ability to pick apart defenses when he's not under pressure. Michigan State can't generate pressure. I think the over is the play. It has come down a point. I will note, we expect a lot of wind in Lincoln on Saturday. So this could be a weather weird game situation that throws everything I just said out the window. If there's not 50-mile-an-hour gusts in this game, I still like the over and we'll add it on my card. Let's move here to the aforementioned Northwestern game. UL Monroe on the road at Northwestern. No, the Big Ten did not add UL Monroe to the conference. This is just your typical early October non-conference matchup in Evanston. The Wildcats by 11.5 here. Our totals at 42. Any thoughts, Doug?
It's funny. Troy was mentioning, it's rare to see a road favorite in the Big Ten and the conference and things like that. It's like we just saw Oregon go to Northwestern. That feels like the Penn State UCLA game. But in terms of this Wildcats team, you just can't lay points with them. Last week, they were dominating 17-3 over UCLA. And somehow they only won by 3 points. And I often ask myself, how dumb will you feel if you make this bet and lose? And if I laid the points with Northwestern, I would feel pretty dumb. It's like, what am I doing? We know Northwestern's a good underdog at times, especially at home. You can't lay double digits of all things. Here's why. Northwestern dominating last week, second half, 17-3. They're on UCLA's 37, okay? 4th and 10. Like, you just go for it, right? You don't want to kick a 54-yarder, but they punted touchback net of 17 yards. You could have run the ball and almost had the same location. So it's just that kind of mentality when you're up double digits, you just can't get away with it. And then you get prevent defense. So the back door is going to be wide open. In terms of Monroe, they're not good, right? We know this, but they've come off a couple games that I was a little surprised with how they looked. Obviously it's a different conference and not many people follow teams like Monroe, but I do, and I was surprised. So I'd be careful laying the points. Warhawks are not good. As we know, they lost to in Tuscaloosa by 73-0, but this is a team that's maybe figuring some things out on offense. I just wouldn't get involved in this game, but be careful. Be careful laying the points here.
Yeah, I'm with you. This does not feel appetizing whatsoever. Sometimes, you get a cupcake type opponent out of conference in the middle of conference season. You could view that as an opportunity with a team you like to, okay, let's get one. Let's get a big blowout win, feeling good about ourselves. I don't know that Northwestern's the team I want to back to do that to anybody. I could see this just being a lackluster type environment in Evanston alone, let alone for the team. Kind of like, hey, this isn't Minnesota. What is this? What are we doing? I want no part of this game. Probably won't watch this game. Definitely will not bet this game. One more on the card here. Minnesota at Ohio State. The Buckeyes by 23.5. Our total at 43.5. It was a statement win for Ohio State on the West Coast against Washington last week. The defense showed out and stifled the Washington attack. You can get Minnesota 13-1 on the road in the shoe if you believe in a letdown performance from the Buckeyes and an out of nowhere win for PJ Fleck. I got to imagine I'm not going to talk you into that. Doug, what do you like here?
Two-part answer. I'm fading Ohio State to this weekend, and if I don't, I'm going to martingale it for next weekend. I don't think this Buckeyes team is professionally mature enough to cover these 3 straight games. I think they're going to get teams' best shot like last week against Washington. It was an impressive win. Sayan did all the right things, throwing the ball away when need be. He's going to get better, but I like what I see. They drilled into his head. Don't be the reason we lose the game in the opener, right, with Texas. And they turned it over to the defense. And I thought the defense did well against Damon Williams. And we mentioned the Illinois game next week. I think there's going to be a slip up here because this Ohio State team is kind of frustrating if you are a fan. We saw them have in Ohio just hanging around in the fourth quarter with this team. So I think the Gophers can get them here on the point spread. No, they're not going to upset them, and I won't take them on the money line. But I think Ohio State's going to have a little bit of a head-scratching performance, and I think it's going to come either this weekend or next. So I do think with Minnesota and the efficiency rankings kind of in the 60s range for both offense and defense, I think this is going to be one of the games where PJ rows the boat, kind of hangs around, maybe gets a deflected pass from a defensive lineman that ricochets to the linebackers and turnover around midfield kind of thing, puts a little heat on the Buckeyes. I just think their wide receivers are so talented they can kind of step on the gas whenever they want. So I don't think they're going to lose at the shoe, especially. But I think plus 23.5 is going to be a little too many points. So I lean there, but I'm prepared to go even further next week with the Illini.
It is a big number. I like the call out strategically of, hey, we're 1 week away from a spot where we might all love Illinois with some favorable numbers. I might give some elementary level analysis here, but could we transitive property Minnesota for just a moment? Because the one full game of Minnesota I watched this year, they were at Cal. They lose 27-14 to Cal. Cal, who next week went to San Diego State and lost 34-0. San Diego State, the program that lost to Washington State 36-13. Washington State, the team that lost to North Texas 59-10. I understand this is not how football works, but those are 3 really bad football teams I just mentioned that all have a transitive property, like levels of degrees of separation advantage over a Minnesota team that I just don't have much quality things to say about. Now, PJ Fleck's a guy that historically I actually like betting in big spots. I think he's a good football coach who has a bad reputation. I just don't know if this Minnesota team has the pieces, has the dogs to go into the shoe and get a win, even if Ohio State gives them a letdown performance. And by win, I mean a win against the spread. To be clear, they're not winning this football game. But I think even if Minnesota throws their best shot, they might not have the firepower to cover 23.5. So staying away from me. Won't be surprised either way, but I am with you. I'm going to look ahead to next week's episodes of the 10 and put a little asterisk on the Ohio State-Illinois game, thinking orange and blue. All right. We got through a lot today, Doug. I appreciate you as always. Let's end the show with our best bets. What's on your card this weekend?
I'm going to go the over with Illinois and Purdue. We talked about the tough spot for the Illini. It's not just off the big upset win and bounce back over the Trojans. It's also just what's left in the gas tank after 2 games ago playing Indiana in Bloomington. So with Ohio State on deck, it's a really tough ask for a Illini team that's pretty shaky defensively, but they have some offensive firepower. And they're getting Purdue off a bye that almost upset them last week, as you alluded to earlier in the show. I think we're going to see some points for the Boilermakers. And I think we're on upset a watch. So I do like the +9, but I think we're going to see some points here. I'm on the over. Purdue and Illinois, it's like, what do we got? 55.5, 56.5, something like that.
Might be time for a little Purdue, Illinois same game parlay. I'm thinking the over, maybe Purdue to cover in that game. I could get on board with that, Doug. For my best bet, I'm going to stay with the total as well. I'm going to take that under in Michigan, Wisconsin. I just really believe Sharon Moore is going to go back to his conservative ways and just try and pound the ball through the I formation on the ground against the #1 run defense in the country. We'll see if I'm right. But as the public trends the opposite direction, I will gladly scoop up that under 43.5 in Michigan and Wisconsin. Doug, I salute you. Thank you as always. Another fun week on the 10. Reminder, we do the show twice a week, every single Wednesday and Friday, getting you ready to bet Big Ten football. We're part of College Sports Rush here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. You can get Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week. Don't miss out on that college football squares and all our other weekly college football promotions that we have for you at Bet Rivers. Bet responsibly, everybody. Good luck in week 6, and we'll see you next week.